my name is Lilith and I'm the creator behind fashion art label Zigantala, based in Melbourne, Australia. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can paint this method that I have sort of called the painted patch method, and it's basically this sort of style that you see this jacket in right here. I did paint this jacket, I painted jeans. And for this tutorial I did paint a little handbag to show you basically the technique behind this painting style and how you can sort of use it to create your own version. I'm going to go through a whole heap of different levels in regards to the technique of painting the patches, and then I'm going to show you layering, and then basically just show you how I went about making my little handbag that I did for this. But otherwise you can also do this on any jackets, any jeans, anything at all, any denim. Obviously, as you can see by this jacket, the inspiration for the painted patch method is definitely derived from when you see those really cool band jackets or like motorcycle jackets, just basically any sort of jacket that has been covered in patches. I also really like just if you see any sort of item that has just been layered with heaps of stickers. I see this a lot in laneways in Melbourne, and I sort of derived my inspiration from these types of visuals and have created this method. Basically what you're going to be needing today is some spare fabric to practice your painting patch method on. You're also going to need fabric paints. I use Color Opaque. This is the fabric paint that has worked for me, and you can definitely have various amounts of colors, but specifically for this tutorial today you will need a white paint and a black paint, and make sure that they are very opaque because they are basically the fundamental colors we will be needing to create the patch method. You will also be needing some fabric chalk. And for the beginner part of this tutorial, you may need something round, a guide that may be a lid, a can, or just something small. I've just used this lid off of my vitamin jar. And then you will be needing the project that you want to apply this patch method to. As I said, I did do mine on a small handbag. Otherwise you can choose other projects. The only thing that with this method, it's definitely more effective in the collective of all the patches. So if you are going to paint patches, make sure that you're painting at least, I don't know, 5 or 10 of them, so that they can be clustered together and sort of create the effect of if they were actually patches or stickers. You will also be needing paintbrushes today. I try to have 3 on hand. Definitely for this you will be wanting a thin paintbrush for details, and then a thicker paintbrush to create the outlines of the patches, which is basically the main method in creating this effect. Onto some painting. It is very straightforward the way that I sort of have consistently painted patches. It's basically replicating a shape, or replicating any sort of shape that you want, but making sure that you have a very defined border. And I've sort of divided 2 separate styles for this tutorial. One of them is the patch and one of them is a sticker. Basically I paint the shape that I want my patch to be. And then what I do is, for the patch technique, I usually will use a dark black border. This replicates the outside of most patches that you see because they do have that thick embroidered border. So this is basically what this technique is. But also what I like to do sometimes is have a contrasting outline around the shape initially before I do the big black border. So in this case I am doing white just because I think the contrast looks good, and it sort of gives off that vibe of a scout badge or just a sticker of any kind. It's just sort of helping the patch to stand out from the border. And funnily enough, the technique to create a sticker is the same technique but with the colors reversed. So I like to take my sticker, then I will outline it with a thin black line, and then I will go around that line with a thick white border. This is to imitate and what a sticker looks like. Usually most stickers that you do have like a thick white border around the initial image. I just have the black line in there to help contrast. So when it comes to painting these patches, my basic method for this would be to paint the color of the shape, and then what you can do as a beginner, you can actually paint whatever image you want on top, I think this is just a good way to start. It doesn't mean that you're working with crazy shapes or anything like that. You're sort of more focused on the design of what you want to put on the sticker or the patch. And as a beginner's design, what you can do is you can just replicate this circle over and over again and apply whatever method that you like, whether that's the thick black border of the patch or the thick white border of the sticker, and then create your little effect. It will create a sort of Cub Scout patch effect. I always think of the little boy in Up with his little sash of all the badges on it, and you can paint anything on these little badges. This is the cool thing about this method, is that you can apply any sort of images, any sort of graphics, letters, words. You could spell out a word with the different circles, anything like that. So yeah, so that is the basic method. So then we're going to take this a little bit further. So if you want something a little bit more difficult, what we can do is we can use the circle or the initial shape that you used in the first part of this tutorial, and you can actually change it up with other shapes, and you can change it to other geometrical shapes. They could be squares, they could be triangles, or you could go a little bit further and do lightning bolts, stars, hearts, something like that if you want to change the shape up. As you can see here, I did this circle patch, and then I also did a lightning bolt patch. I know that I do say that I do an initial like contrasting outline of the shape before I do the thick outline. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to do that. This was just something that I started off with and something that I use to help colors and the images on the patch pop. But if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. I did do that on here, on this jacket, where I just used thick black outlines, and I did also do that on my pants, but it's totally up to you. The next sort of level of difficulty that you can move on to, if all of that is a little bit too easy, is that you can actually paint any organic shape as your patch and then just apply a black border to that. I just say this is a little bit more challenging just because you will have to think more about like the shape of the design and will have to do a couple more layers, but that is just something to move on to once you feel confident with doing this patch painting technique. So that's basically the fundamentals of painting the patch technique. You've got the thick borders, the different shapes, being able to replicate the same shape or being able to replicate different shapes, and maybe even moving to organic shapes as well. When you have all of this down pat, this is when you can actually start to incorporate layers and clusters of the stickers and the patches. Obviously, as I said before, this design is quite effective in the patches as a collective. So when you do many patches all at once, and maybe especially if it is your style to cluster them a little bit, it will just sort of add a little bit more of a dimension to your design. I did this with my little red bag. I decided that I would be doing a mixture of organic shapes, geometric shapes, and round shapes. And I also wanted to use a combination of the sticker and the patch technique. I did also make sure to just pick out a color palette, just because this type of style of painting can be quite chaotic, and because I just wanted this bag to be a little bit more stylized, I did confine myself to a palette so it would just be a little bit more fitting. But you can also, as you can see by this jacket, you can just do as many colors as you want. It really doesn't matter, there are no rules. So basically what I like to do with clusters or patterns that are quite layered is, as I said before, you just want to be able to paint the basic shapes of each of your stickers or patches and just sort of lay them down. It's basically just being able to sort of visualize and see your design, and then gradually painting in the details, and then gradually putting in the outlines. I try to do the outlines last when I am doing a layered effect, just because you want that nice finished look. Because I decided to paint out my layers first, you don't have to paint the whole of one patch if it's underneath another one, so you don't have to waste paint, but you just have to make sure that the edges all sort of work together, and there's nothing that's sort of poking out or nothing that's sort of looking like you did sort of cut a corner and not paint the whole patch, if you know what I mean. One of the challenges I find when painting in this style is obviously being able to come up with lots of ideas of what you want painted on your jacket. I haven't actually counted how many images I have on this jacket, but it would be a lot, and it did actually take me a while to think up of what can I paint. I can paint a yin yang, I can paint a cactus, I can paint a pizza, a chain, just things that I liked the look of. And a tip for that is to look online, and if you look up on Google or on Pinterest, it'll come up with these simple graphics that you can use. I was searching like graphics, sticker packs, you know, all different types of things came up. I basically just had a look on Pinterest to find a couple of things and incorporate a couple of detailed stickers, and then some stickers that were just different shapes, like these stars. You don't have to paint details in every sticker. Sometimes you can just have little fillers in there to help your cluster look nice, and you can also incorporate words or letters or script or anything like that. Yeah, so I definitely leave a lot of the borders, especially if you're using a lot of black, last, because I'll paint in all the details, and then the little black borders that go over these stickers, especially the ones that are sort of painted to the front, they will have a very clean finish, and it will look like they are sitting on top of a pile of stickers or patches. So yeah, that's my finished product. As you can see, this is a leather bag, so I did have a bit of trouble with the opacity of the paints and just doing different layers, just because leather is a much more different surface to paint on. If you are practicing this patch method, make sure that you're practicing on the same fabric that you will be painting on. I didn't do that for this, and it sort of took me longer than I thought. I'm thinking I might do a video about painting on leather, because it does vastly differ from denim. So yeah, that is the painted patch technique. I like to create my tutorials in a way where I can give you a technique that can be used and developed in whatever avenue you want to go down. So you can create sort of any style with this method, whether that's just cool funky colors like this jacket, whether it's circular patches, which is what I did on my pants, or you can sort of try and conform to a theme, whether that's like a sort of like a pink metallic theme, or you could go more rock and roll. You can incorporate more music into a denim patch jacket. It's completely up to you, and that's what is the great thing about this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will probably see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night.